for us, I didn't delete it. Okay. So we can start. Thank you everybody for coming. We have our gracious chair, our distinguished delegate and old friend of UNDP and of all the LDCs partnering in this program, Bonizella.
Okay, thank you very much, Bonnie. And sorry for coming in when everybody is almost seated. As Bonnie just said, since 2000, we have been fighting together for the LDCs. And I was in the other room talking about LDCs and the LDCF. But really, we work towards having the LDCF approved in Marrakesh. And we are now again going back to Marrakesh. So, but anyway, this is one of the fruits of the hard work that we had together in Marrakesh when we approved the LDCF and the LDC program. And everything has come together, and now we have started getting funding for adaptation in the LDC. And this is one of the main projects that came out of that hard work. And we are very happy that we can sit here after about 15 years. We are talking about the fruits of what we did 15 years ago. Now, how many of you are meteorologists? Meteorologists, that's right, he is one of them. I am one of them. We develop models, we make projections, we use a lot of scientific analysis, and we produce products like forecasts, whether they are general forecasts or specific to some sectors or some transportation issues and so on. But we are not good at getting this information to the local communities. We are very poor in that. And with climate change now, climate change adaptation is not happening or is not going to happen in the offices. It is going to happen at the point where you have the people who suffer most, the people who are really impacted, and that is the grassroots level. But meteorologists are not good at communicating to grassroots level communities because we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the communication means. So there must be now an intermediary between the meteorologists and the local communities. And this project has struggled hard to make sure that bridge is there. In all the countries where you have this project, now meteorologists and the local communities are communicating through some medium, some tools are there, and so on. And this workshop is definitely going to show you some of the tools that are very useful in communicating information from the providers to the users. I think we are calling them hackers. So if you are coming here to say you are going to hear about hackers, it's not the bad hackers. Actually, in Zambia, when we had the meeting, we tried to coin something better, and maybe we call them smart hackers or so on. But when you hear hackers, you think you are coming to people who would always get into your computer and do some things but these are smart hackers. They have developed tools that will help the meteorologists communicate information to the users and possibly a feedback. So I think we are going to listen to some of these tools. We are going to see some of these tools either in terms of video or a presentation, And from Malawi, we'll see what is really happening on the ground. Thank you. So that being the case now, I will now call upon Bonnie to give us a presentation on the new vision for climate services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bubu. Thank you all for coming here. We know that there are many coordinating meetings that are going on at this time. We are, for this reason, also streaming these meetings so people can access it from outside. What I'm going to do, essentially, this is the situation. You walk around this corridor and hear about adaptation financing, adaptation actions, etc. If you get into the business, there is always one question that is asked at the beginning, which is, which are the data? In order to act for the climate risk, I need to know my risk. And many countries, especially the partners of this program, which are LDCs in Africa, least developed countries in Africa, do not have this data and therefore cannot analyze and quantify their risk and take the appropriate actions. This program, this partnership with UNDP, the Brown Institute for Media Innovation at Columbia University, IRI, and all the partners of this program, there are 11 LDCs, are ready to undertake this task and to get the data, process them, and then disseminate them and send them to the end users, because it doesn't matter having the good data if they don't reach the end users, as Bubu was saying. And how to reach the end users? I mean, in Africa, for example, there's not much internet, but everybody has a phone. So that's why the hackers are so helpful, because they are developing methods to disseminate this data through the phones that can reach the farmers, the vulnerable communities, and of course also very importantly in this context, the policymakers who are planning for the NAPs. You cannot move from urgent and immediate adaptation to more long-term planning without the access to this data. So I'm going to give you a very quick overview of this program, and then we'll go straight to the end users, how to reach the end users, rather than analyzing too much how the data are generated, etc. And then of course, we'll give you a concrete example of all the steps through our colleague in Malawi. So next, please. So why climate information? Well, that's what I was talking about. Not only in the Paris Accord, there is a pillar that talks about climate data and climate information and access to reliable data, but also the NAPA, the passage from the NAPA to the NAPs in the least developed countries, but also around the world, shows the importance of climate information. Climate information enables vulnerable communities to understand the risk and to integrate adaptation actions with making informed decisions on adaptation actions. Next, please. Why Africa? Well, as I was saying before, good data are an issue for everybody. But of course, there are some countries that have more lack of data, lack of the right technology, lack of the capacity to process the data and communicate them to the end users. So that's why this program is focused on Africa. It was actually a response by UNDP, because we are listening to the countries and they tell us what they need, why we have to mobilize the funding, and they came to us and told us, we want to do adaptation seriously, we need this data to be generated and to be communicated properly. So there is a lot that is going on, because there is not only the gathering of the data and the processing of them, but how this process occurs, which are all the steps. We found out, for example, that the private sector has a strong potential to have a positive role, and we are working with them, trying to engage the private sector in Africa. There's, as you know, there is not much participation and engagement of the private sector in Africa, and they can do a lot of concrete work on this sector. So the CIRDA overview, I know my countries by heart, but instead of listening them to you, I just show you the map, and you will see they are countries with high vulnerabilities, high need for data, and also many of them have basins in common, like you see Uganda, Tanzania, etc. Zambia and Malawi. So we also are helping them in this partnership to share the data, because climate change doesn't look at national boundaries, and upstream, downstream climate and weather information has to be disseminated. While for now, all these data have been considered a property of the government and are not easily shared. We are a global support program. We're a partnership that has investment funding for the technologies, the software, and all the methods to get this data back to the end users. But we're also a global support program, so we help the countries to develop the capacity that they need to achieve these objectives. And we have started this project thinking backwards, looking at the end users first and going backwards and see what they need, in which way they need this data, and going backwards to the technologies that are needed to generate this data. Initial challenges, well, building capacity, again, is not only about technologies, as we see at the third column. Technology alone is not enough. You need the services that help the countries build the knowledge on how to use this data. And therefore, we have found out that purchasing lots of technologies is useless if the technology is left unpacked in a garage or is set up and doesn't work. You need to have the capacity to install it, operationalize it, and make the right use of the data. So going beyond hardware, understanding and accessing innovative technologies. That's another interesting feature of this program. We have found out that there is an assessment of the needs for financing for data technologies that could be significantly reduced, because there is a new generation of technologies that are way less expensive than the conventional technologies and can provide similar, a lot of significant data, especially for adaptation purposes that help saving people's lives more than going to a big computer and generate important models. But they're both needed. They're both the data that go for climate modeling, and there are also the data that have to go to the people, which is the part that we're working on now, because people are dying all over the world, and in particular in vulnerable countries. Partnerships, nobody can do it alone. Like everything on adaptation, there's nothing that can be done by one single entity, whether a government, whether the local communities, whether the scientists, or it is a combination of skills, and we as UNDP are in a good position to facilitate these partnerships, and so we're putting together, these not easy cooperation between the private sector and the public sector, facilitating the regional cooperation, and helping building the capacity of these countries that by definition are those who need more of this help. So solutions, we are providing, as I was saying, we are a global support program. Besides the investments, we are actually supporting the country's needs. Very specifically, we have a team of experts who goes boots on the ground in the countries, in all 11 countries, have day-to-day individualized, customized support. We provide technical assistance, again, besides the hardware financing for the infrastructure, the software, and the last mile. We also provide technical assistance. We give support on hydrology, technology, meteorology, and forecasting. And together with the partner countries, we are discovering these new technologies and these new, more kind of leapfrogging ways to generate the data and help people on the ground. A big part is the private sector engagement. As I was telling you, if you want the phone to give you the data in your language in a simple way, well, you need a phone company to get along and help with this data. This is among many the things we are trying to bring. We're bringing cell phone companies to this group to provide their services, because if an NGO or the government provides the data so that they can provide the service, they do it for free, but they have more members and therefore they make a profit. And we're also, through a private sector strategy, trying to develop methodology to generate revenue so that the project is also financially sustainable. I'm very fast because I want to give the time to the hackers to talk about their apps, but I also want to give you the overview so you understand in which context the hackers are operating. So what happens? Again, the data are generated, are processed through new technology that provide also the service, and then must be disseminated to the end users. And the hackers come to the scene because they are developing. There is a generation of younger partners who are developing apps specifically designed for the needs of the end users in their countries. We had a hackathon in Zambia in our last workshop, in which we were doing collective training, and many interesting things happened. Knowledge management is also, of course, a part of our work, because what helps a lot is to share the lessons learned so that mistakes are not made all over again. And these 11 different countries, but with similar vulnerabilities and adaptation needs, can share their lessons. I'm not going to read this one, but I'm just want to show you in a nutshell how much work has been done already. Technologies has been purchased, services have been set up, capacity improvement. Every country, this is a kind of a interim evaluation that we're doing, so that we show you how much progress has been made. It's a difficult partnership at 11 countries. We also have countries with severe economic and health problems. We had the countries that had the Ebola crisis. So on top of the climate crisis, they also had Ebola. This was Sierra Leone and Liberia. Still, there are some of the most some of the strongest supporters of this program, because they believe that leapfrogging technologies and new methods to access the end users is the way to go, is less expensive and reaches out more people faster. The Uganda case, I'm not going to get into this, but since all our presentations are available. There is an attached article on the case of Uganda. Uganda is one of our countries with, proportionally speaking, with larger capacity, which has a strong political will to work on the private sector, and has already started piloting these new technologies. Through this slide, you can click in there and learn more about the Uganda case, but I'd rather give more space to my colleague and friend Fred, who will give you upfront, firsthand, his experience from the government of Malawi. So what are we doing? We're trying to figure out, because it's not so obvious, you have heard it in several plenaries, how cautious governments are about engaging with the private sector. We're not subsidizing the private sector, no way, they won't see a penny from us. What we are doing is facilitating the regulatory and partnership system so that the private sector can come and engage, because they will make a profit doing the right thing. So if they make a profit by saving lives, for us is fine. We don't give them the money, but we give them the opportunity to take this data to make a good use out of it. And not just them, other partners. For example, there is an NGO that is developing a 3-to-1 system that gives you alerts on the phone, and they are available to do it for free, still in partnership, and then give it to the cell phone company. We have, in order to get this work done, have gone to these countries and made interviews to the people and the partners working in the meteorological offices, etc., to know what was the starting point situation with respect to a private sector participation in this initiative. And what came out is a preliminary snapshot, and this is a market study, and we have the preliminary result of this market study that I can tell you in a nutshell. For example, these interesting results. We found out that there is a cultural revolution that we are in the middle of. There are the Met offices, people who tend to be working in a system that has been useful, but has not been sufficient to deal with the impacts of climate change. Those are the people at the moment reluctant to engage with the private sector. What's going on? The private sector is taking on its own, because the private sector company are increasingly offering alternatives. They're offering their own data, they're offering their own systems. And what we think is the best thing to do is to promote a relationship and a PPP, a private public partnership, so that these two roads don't go on their own and the private sector takes over without taking into account all the parameters that are relevant for the government bodies, like the Met offices. So this is what we're doing. But the market study in Africa gives you this snapshot of what's going on with the private sector there and what could happen and which are the opportunities that this partnership offers. So we believe that even though it's the beginning, it's extremely interesting. And we have, this is the flag. It's actually in color, but we didn't have a color printer, but it's you can download it also in your computer, but we have a bunch of those. So the private sector link, we would like to give you a half hour tonight to discuss the private sector here, because we want to, again, engage in a discussion that is still in its beginning phase. And we have this, we are bringing to the table as UNDP, as a coordinators of this larger partnership, this idea that the private sector can bring a lot of tools and a lot of opportunities and engage in a so-called virtuous circle. So companies providing weather observation, analysis, and communications are increasingly able to support the national hydrometeorological services and offices. And there are many commercial needs for weather services, for example, aviation, agriculture, etc., that can potentially provide revenue. Like the aviation sector may buy this data and therefore generate some revenues. And as you know, one of the most important things that everybody is acknowledging after years and years of projects that are donor dependent, that if you don't set up a system of financial sustainability, then the community and the project keeps being dependent on the donor money. When the money ends, all the results end. This is instead an incentive to make the project financially sustainable. And we believe that in this specific case, the private sector has a role. And then the last mile. The last mile is the most important thing, because so far we have been seeing data generated and sitting on a shelf, not being digitized, not being even generated if the system doesn't work. So we really focused on how to get this data to the people in a form, language, and way that they can understanding and act in an informed way in case of an extreme climate event, and therefore providing early warning systems. I mean, in some of these LDCs in Africa, there weren't early warning systems. People were dying just because of an emergency, because they didn't get the information on time. We're working on that, this very basic need, and more on the trends, on how to help the farmers, and to give more systematic data to the policymakers. So how to reach these end users? And there enter the hackers. As I was saying before, everybody in Africa told us that the phones are a very strong system to communicate. The phone works well. So how to get this phone communication to the end user? We invited the hackers. I have one with me, Robert, but we have a small documentary showing the apps they made. And through the apps, we want to reach the end users. So next steps, take advantage of new technologies, explore pathways to make the data available to end users through local network technologies and partnerships, consider market opportunities, weather products and private sector engagement, explore relationship and partnership that can help national climate services reach end users and become sustainable, and engage with software developers. The hackers, if you find a better name, let us know, because some people say, I don't want to get anything to do with the hackers. Well, instead you should. And so software developers, that was a name. to design and develop new applications to transform and communicate weather and data to end users. So I'm finishing here, and I hope you'll enjoy to see what these people were able to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. That is very informative, and you have covered from the providers to the users. And I think we can go straight to the next presentation, because we want to have more time for discussion. This is the process behind the climate action hackers. Do you have a theme, or yeah? Okay, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Kirch. I'm coming to you from the Brown Institute for Media Innovation. So I thought I'd give a little context, because I think we understand why the CIRDA program in the UNDP has such an interest. But I think to help set the stage, I would give you a brief background of the Brown Institute, and then the projects that we found to be very interesting coming out of the hackathon. So the Brown Institute was founded in 2012, and we're a bi-coastal partnership between Stanford Engineering and Columbia's Journalism School. And we largely operate as a granting organization. So our focus is on funding projects in the crosshairs of engineering and journalism, or engineering and storytelling. And so I thought I'd share two projects. The first is Nueva Nación, and this is extremely representative of the types of projects that we like to fund. So as a brief backstory, Panama is an incredibly transparent state in that it wants to make its data accessible, but oftentimes we find the data in forms of paper or in photo PDFs or in tables that are constantly overwriting themselves. So while the data is accessible, it's not actionable. And if a journalist were to look at it, it would take them an extremely long time to tell a story about it and to start to question the motives at play. And so for the last year, Nueva Nación has been collecting data from all of the departments and ministries in Panama, and we'll be launching in the next few months with a complete and comprehensive overview of all of the government data, including writing scripts that are continually updating, so that we won't fall back into the trap that Panama's in at the current moment. And the first thing that we'll do is open up this data and make it accessible to journalists. And then the second project I just want to touch on, again, to show kind of where our interests lie, is On the Brink of Famine. This project is a partnership with Frontline, which is a public broadcasting service a documentary service in the United States. And it was a 360-degree documentary. I don't know how many of you have seen a 360 documentary, but basically this blue camera in the center is shooting in all directions. And so you can either view it in your phone and move around, or use the Chrome browser. You can actually go home and on this project launched on Facebook in the middle of March. And we'll be launching on Arte in about 10 days in both French and German. And is showing at UN headquarters in New York on Thursday. So these are the types of projects that we fund, and we fund about 8 to 10 projects every year. Again, right in that section of technology and story, with hopes of extending what technology or journalism might be. And this is a stretched out image of what the 360 looks like. And then on top of that, we do conferences and trainings. So again, we're extremely interested in empowering journalists with a better understanding and comprehension or employment of technology. And so we do workshops and things like data visualization and mapping and cartography and machine learning. And we hold conferences, again, right at that intersection. And last year, we were approached by IRI, which is the International Research Institute for Climate and Society. And we've been trying to figure out ways of changing the discussion of climate change, because while it's becoming more and more accepted, our understanding of its impact on the ground is not that clear. as a public audience. And so we've been trying to partner to think about new ways to frame that conversation. And that's what drew us to the UNDP in the CIRDA program. So as Bonnie said, in March, we went to Zambia, and we brought out a series of programmers. It was about 20 or 22, and we put them through a day of conference where they listened to the Met Services discuss the problems that they were having. So as Bubu mentioned, the data is being collected oftentimes, but it's not making its way to the public. And it's certainly not making its way as a message to the public. And so we had the programmers sit through a day of the conference to learn what the challenges were in this stadium. And then we had them define what a project might be that could tackle this mission. And through that design process, we had them think about things like assets and stakeholders and the key challenges that they would confront. And after that, we gave them 24 hours and helped them work with a variety of data libraries and put them to work. And so I'm going to show you a brief video just documenting a variety of the projects, and then I'm going to hand it over to Robert to talk through his project in particular.
Well, Michael set it up. I just want to remind you that we have refreshments at the end.
Hello, my name is Luke. I'm Beninese, and with my team, we have made the project named Climor. Climor, it is a climate information platform that provides tailored advice to farmers and other users based on the voice and provided in local African language.
Here we have access to the Climor website. First of all, we generate information on the Climor website here. So we click start now. And here is where the data will be present. For demonstration purposes, we are going to leave the data as is. So for example, on the first day, we have no rainfall. On day 2, we have no rainfall. And then the rain occurs again on day 4 and 5 and 6, and no rain on day 7. So what happens is when we generate the weather information, we take this information here and we translate it into English and we customize it later on, not in this demonstration, for a particular crop. So here we'll use this climate and weather information and compile a message in English. So when we click generate weather information, now when the farmer is interested in obtaining this information, he or she can use their cell phone and call. And then the answer. Today there will be no rain. But it will rain in 5 days' time. Thank you, Climor, always available to serve you. Goodbye. Bye.
Okay, my name is Madi-Jimba. I represent a team called Next Edge. We are looking at a product called Extend, which I'll be helping the agricultural officer just come up with accurate information for the farmers. I'll just walk you through and we can see how we go from there. So this is just a general dashboard. that gives you a 7-day forecast at the book. And all this is streamed by an API, from an API. We've got rainfall temperature. Now with the rainfall temperature, what we're doing is we're giving you historical data. So over the last 5 years, we give you last year's data and then current data so that we know how accurate it is. We also have a risk factor. When it shows red alerts, we can, because our data is going to be up to granular level, and you can be able to tell who exactly is being targeted. And where the geolocation of each farmer is. So when it shows red, you can tell approximately how many farmers are under risk or under threat, and we can come up with the solutions for them. So if there's no rainfall, tell them to irrigate or don't plant, etc., etc. We also have messaging service for them. So once we know what's happening with them, we can message it to them directly. You can send a message and tell them this is exactly what's happening, therefore reaching them faster.
My name is Robert, and I'm from Kenya. We've been working on a project for Adaptation. It's a project which deals with sustaining the lives in the mainland. And we're working on a project together with my friend from Kenya called Kevin Yellow. And so what it does actually is that we have a vegetation map or the grass cover map, which we use to calculate the biomass production within our mainland. And after that, we look at the demand for biomass for livestock, and then we're able to look at the sustainability based on the usage, based on the demand, the livestock, and also the biomass production. And that's why we come with this map. This is a map for the study area that we're using for our case study, and it's just a distribution map for the pastoralists in the area. We need to for our case study, and how to map is this kind of map. So if you look at this map, it shows the vegetation cover, the best storage where they are, and the poor and all that. So in the end of it, we can advise the pastoralists to move in their pastures to the areas where the best storage is. Yeah. So this service also uses SMS, where I'll be going to integrate SMS to send early warning messages to pastoralists on the best grounds to take the livestock for feeding. Yeah, and also at the same time, insurance information, where they can also be advised on the best policies to insure the livestock in case of drought, and also market information we give them so they can sell the livestock when we have warnings of droughts coming ahead. So it's a system that involves many people, involves the pastoralists, involves the insurance agencies, and also involves the markets. Yes. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Tinashe, I'm from Zimbabwe, and we've been working on a project called Farm Sky. My other team members are from Zambia and Kenya. What happens with Farm Sky is it collects information, climatic information, historical climatic information, processes it to project future weather patterns of an area. So subscribed farmers would send a request of their location and the type of crop that they want to farm. And then the system is going to take that information, reverse geocode it to see the location and the projected weather patterns, and then advise on if it's wise to go ahead and plant, when to plant, and when to take the various activities of farming, that is applying fertilizer. And basically what we're trying to do is to bridge the gap between the fragmented data sets, climate fragmented data sets, and the local farmers so that it becomes useful information to them. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Naomi and this is Rishi. We're both from Germany, and what we build is called Climate Frame. The idea of Climate Frame is to allow local experts and communities within Africa to create their own messaging system. So the idea is they use data sets that are publicly available online to essentially produce something like conditions. An example would be if the rain probability is higher than 30%, do not water your plants because it's going to rain. So how that would work is you would click on rain probability, then you can say if the rain probability is greater than 30%, then send a text message that says, do not water your plants. Then you generate this sort of recipe, which essentially means if this happens, then you get this output, and it would pop up the number that people have to call. They sign up for the service, and if this ever becomes true, where the rain probability is greater than 30%, they will send this. They will be sent this message. That's our idea.
So I want to, right before I call up Robert, I want to quickly walk through just one of the other applications that was developed. And it was shown very briefly. So I want to give it a little more time. There we go. Okay.
Did you close it?
No, it's still going. Yeah. So I just want to quickly walk through this application because I thought it was incredibly creative and exactly kind of the things that we would like to see done with data. And so the extend application is meant largely for agricultural officers. So in a lot of these countries, there's a single officer who is basically disseminating information to a large consortium of farmers. But other than knowing who that individual's farmers are, there's very little information outside of that. And so this application is meant to be a snapshot of farmers so that you can quickly see, based on the current conditions, how many of your farmers are at high risk for some type of variability that's going to affect their farm in a negative way. And from that, you can quickly access that group of farmers and send them information to change what they're doing. And I think this is very much in the spirit of adaptation in a positive way. And yeah, I think at this point, I'd like to call up Robert to give his talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I think you can make a presentation. But I think most of you are now thinking of how to rename this group, not hackers, because these are not ordinary hackers. These are smart computer specialists. And I think they are giving us a very good information for the users. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert. I'm going to present to you about the Emily Show application, which uses climate data to provide decisions, help livestock keepers make decisions based on the rangeland, sustainability, market information, and climate change. So this project is based on a model. The model is being used some in Kenya for the Mamase, the Mau, Mara, and Serengeti region. So the model is a scientific model developed by the ITC professor in ITC to calculate rangeland productivity, looking into the factors of rainfall, where rainfall data, we get rainfall data, real-time rainfall data from satellites, from GeoNetcast. And then we use that to calculate the production of forage for the area. So after getting the production, that's the forage prediction, and we also look at the livestock demand, getting information from livestock keepers on the number of livestock they keep, the type, the dry matter intake for the livestock. We calculate and we get the demand for the livestock for the area. And then we are able to advise them that within a given ranch, the capacity for the capacity for forage is this amount, and your demand is this much. So you either have to sell some of your livestock so that you don't overgraze within a region. So that is what the Mamase is doing. But in Lisho, we are using that information to communicate to the livestock keepers. What we've identified also in the introduction here, that most of Africa, they rely so much on rain-fed agriculture. And so due to climate change, their lives are affected because when there are droughts, the livestock, like the pastoralists, all the livestock die. And so when your livestock die during drought, when drought ends, you have no means of sustaining yourself. You go back to zero, you start other ways of getting income. So there are things that have affected most of the pastoralists in Africa. So we came up with this a simple table. It shows the drought effect of the drought that occurred in 2005, 2006 in Kenya, and the number of livestock that was lost within the regional study, that's the Mara. And you look at the amount of money. If you calculate the number of livestock that died, you translate it to monetary value. You're able to look at what was lost. So if these livestock keepers maybe were informed earlier of the calamity that was coming, they were informed that there's going to be drought, they will have not lost all this amount of money. So if you look at it from that point, they've been lacking information. And so if you're able to give them good information, you're able to use weather prediction, and then we calculate the sustainability of our inland, then we can help these livestock keepers at least to sustain their lives during drought. Looking at the impact of climate change to pastoralists. Pastoralists, the people, they move around with the livestock. So one of it is the change of their traditional grazing patterns. There are people who move like in Europe, there's summer, there's autumn, but in Africa, we don't have those. In January to March, maybe they move to this place. It has been their traditional pattern of movement. But because of climate change, this pattern has also changed, because now they can never find pastures in the places they used to get pastures. And also, as they move around, they also get into conflicts with pastoralists, other pastoralists. When they go into other communal grounds, they also get conflicts with wildlife, because wildlife are also moving around looking for pasture. There's also loss of livestock during drought, and the loss of source of income. Solution that we provided, that we came up with. The solution, first of all, is be able to calculate to predict the rainland productivity using rainfall data. And after already predicted that, what do we do? How do we use it to help the livestock keepers? We communicate. So one thing that we do is communicate rangeland sustainability through maps to them. We inform them of an area. If an area has less vegetation, we tell them, please move to another area which has better vegetation, or we tell them to either reduce their stock. So that is communicating market information also to them. They reduce their stock either by selling some of their livestock to government agencies or to the meat agencies, and also communicating livestock insurance policy through insurance companies. This is one of the things that is starting up also in Africa, where we encourage the livestock keepers or the pastoralists to insure their livestock, because if it's a case of an impending drought, you insure livestock so that even if drought comes and all your livestock go, you can be compensated, and when the year starts or a new period starts, you can at least have something to start off from. That's what is communicated in the diagram. Now, back to Mlisho What is Mlisho? Mlisho comes from Swahili word, Elisho, Malisho, to mean pasture. Malisho means pasture, and M is from the mobile. So because this application actually is guiding the movement of the pastoralists and giving them information. So that's why the name Mlisho comes in to mean the mobile pasture. An early warning system for communicating rangeland, sustainability information to pastoralists and also to other stakeholders like the insurance agencies. It also helped them to influence this. We also use it to influence the decision of the pastoralists to sell or insure the livestock, and also for guidance. These are how actually the whole concept of it work. We have a biomass supply, yes, from the vegetation map that we have, and then we have the consumption by livestock. Yes, wildlife is also there because we take into account also livestock who may encroach or get out of the reserves, and we have sustainability information that is looking at other areas, rocky areas. Yes, livestock cannot really move a lot. Yeah, so they have to take in that. So account all those things that can prevent their free movement in search of pasture. And what we get actually is the result. That's the observed vegetation map. That's now the result map, which now we in Emulation are able to consume and use to send information now to the pastoralist. So I'm going to take you through a demo for this because actually that's why I'm here. The demo. Yes, the demo, the rainfall acquisition uses geoneticast and satellite, but I don't want to show it right now. What I'll just take you through is through the web portal, how we consume what's already produced, and we use it to send adequate communication to the pastoralist. So this is a map. Sorry, still loading. Yes, this is a map that we have for a case study of an area. And this map, if you can see, there are places which are more green, so to mean they have a lot of pasture, and places becoming brown, it means they have less pasture. So in this map, when you have it in our control room, as we can be able to see and advise these livestock keepers, like those images you're seeing there, the images of cows for the livestock keepers, and we have logged them in our database to show the number of cattle they have, and also to see their movement. So this kind of a map we can use to advise these livestock keepers on the places to move to get pasture. And one thing, we also have areas of protected areas. One of them that I used is the National Reserve. A national park, we get the controlled area where pastoralists are not supposed to go because, first of all, they may endanger their lives because of wildlife. So we have to advise them, like now, these four pastoralists, they are entering the reserve. We're going to send a message to them to warn them to get out of it because they're going to endanger their life and to look for pasture in other grounds. So that's a map. That's what the map is showing, and that's controlling. So in here we have a control center. Now the control room here is where we have the pastoral information. We can get the information. Then our livestock they keep and all that, and their position, where they're located. So I don't know if I can add somebody. Yes. Which name?
Bubu.
Yeah.
Bubu Pate Jallo. Bubu, B-U-B-U.
B-U-B-U.
Jallo. Surname Jallo, yes.
Jallo. How many number of cattle do you have?
Number of cattle?
Yes, 20.
Double L?
OW, yeah.
OW.
Yeah.
How many number of cattle do you have?
We have 40, 45.
40,
45, yes.
45. And goods?
Goods?
Yes.
No.
You don't have? What about sheep?
Sheep? No.
You don't have? Okay. What is your mobile number? You start with the code for your country.
220.
220.
3911.
3911.
323.
323. Okay. So we are going to here now. We are able to get the location, because when we have our data collectors who get information about these people, they're able to get the location where they are at a particular time when the information is collected. So here may give you just one of the coordinates within the region.
Take me to the valley. Rift Valley. Is that not there?
The Rift Valley, yeah, the Rift Valley is still there. Let me give you a coordinate within the within the study area using. I've remembered. Yes, we've added your information. So if I come here, I'll see Babu Jalo.
Yes.
Yes, and if I go back to the map, yes, if I go back to the map, you look around. Yes, Babu Jalo is here. Okay. Babu Jalo.
Okay.
And so, yes, Babu Jalo is entering a dangerous zone. And
very common in West Africa.
Yes, what we can do is I want to send Babu Jalo a warning message. Tell him please turn off, get that place. So I need to turn this here. Now I can't see Babu again. In the screen. Yes. Oh, I've got so. Yeah, you are entering into a reserve. South area. Please turn north or something. Some message. There's some message. Message going to be generated by the system, so that's why it's not implemented. So, send a message to him. It was number 17 also. This one here. Have you received a message? Should be receiving a message for me.
Oh no.
You're not received?
No, the number I gave you is Gambian number.
Yes, I wanted somebody maybe for to test the SMS. So he gave us a number which is not really in the phone right now.
No, when I get back, I'll receive it.
Okay. Maybe I can edit. His number.
Yeah, you just.
Yes, I want to try a different phone number.
Try this number here.
Yes, so. Oh no, I need to edit first your information.
You have to the pastoralist has to solicit, or are you monitoring them so you can send the message? How do you know he's entering into the park?
Yes, that's a good question. First of all, what we do, we have we're thinking of getting chips for the pastoralist. So we put the tag in the livestock so that it's able to, every time the location is changed, it log it to the database. Right now, I created a small hub just for that simulation using Android, where I'm able to get, only that I cannot show it here. I wish I could, where I'm able to get the location of this pastoralist as they move around. And I'm able to read because I can get the GPS location using my phone. Then I log it to the database. So when I log it to the database, when I go back now in the control room and I look at my site, I'm able to see that, oh, this person is going this way, is moving this way. So you advise them. So that's what I do. We log always where their movement. Yeah.
Sorry, is it their phone that's transmitting location? So their phone is giving, you get the location from their phone?
Right now, that's what I'm using for the simulation. I kind of simulated that I created a simple app for that. But because pastoralists, they don't have this kind of phones, the smartphones. Most of them have feature phones. what we do is we give them data loggers, at least the one which can read the location and log the data. Yes.
Can I give you the number, German number?
Yes, that's fine.
Oh, oh.
Yeah, 44.
49 00
0049.
00. Yeah, plus 29.
Plus 49.
49 4900.
Plus 49.
Okay, 0049.
152
152.
168
168.
37
37.
676.
676. Yes, confirm.
Yeah.
It's okay. Okay, good. So,
number 4. Is it number 4?
Yeah, it should be number 4. Let me refresh my pages. Yes, number 4 is there, dated. So, just a test, kind of a test message that you can be able to send to the pastoralist. Like the one I was saying, entering into reserved is turn off. Yes. Yes.
2 quick questions. How much do they have to pay for that service, like in your business model, so to say? And the other question is like, you always have this joy of information, but then also the trackability. So I assume, depending on the policy situation, people may fear that they have to pay a fine. So they can also be traced, like in a. So I mean, do you think of the feedback you're getting, they're more, it's more helpful for them to have this warning, right?
Yeah.
Service, or
Yes.
do they fear any punishment in terms of some fines that we need to pay for entering something areas?
Yes. Thank you so much. Actually,
The mic.
Oh, sorry.
It's on the chair, sorry.
Yeah.
The box. The box on my chair.
Oh, is that the mic?
That's
Yes. Oh, I thought it was a Red Cross box. Throw it?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
I want to respond to that question. She's asking about the sustainability of the system itself. As is going to be sustainable because we have to pay for SMS services. Yeah. One thing that we are doing with this application is we are liaising with the insurance people. So with the insurance companies, they're able to sell the policies we give them our application or an API to use our application to be able to create policies to sell to the livestock keepers. Yes, so from that insurance, we can able to get some money to sustain the system. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We really don't want to get to a point of because we'll be sending SMSs to the pastoralists every time here and there. Really cannot be asking them, you need to pay for this service. Yeah, but there's also a way when an SMS, if it is sent, then the one who receive it, the one who incur the charges, the cost. Yeah, but we've not looked at that. We want to get what we want to use what we get from the insurance, the funds, what insurance can give us to sustain it, because they depend on it. Yeah. Did you get the message? Or you still not yet? I need another number, or I'll use my phone. My number, my Kenyan number. Maybe they're not coming. Yes, Bonnie, you told me.
I just wanted to add that to Julia's question that the idea was also, we are exploring different models for financial sustainability. So Robert gave you an example, but there are several others. And if we have enough time, we actually wanted to dedicate the last part of this conversation exactly on that. So you'll have more ideas on how that can be financially sustainable. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there any sort of like risk to your business in terms of, so for example, I'm not sure what scientific data that you use, but maybe somebody could claim that the data doesn't have like the level of accuracy that they would need for to make a decision, like an informed decision on whether to move or not. So like, have you covered that liability part of it? And I don't know if the insurance companies actually have stipulation with that.
First of all, the data that we use come from the satellite. When you use satellite to cover a picture is for the vegetation. So the picture that you'll get for the vegetation, that's always what is there. And other input that we use also is the rainfall data that we get from the satellite, also geneticist. And so those data have been confirmed, because even here we look at the prediction of the weather information. So those ones we can use because they are things which are being used to predict rainfall for a period of time. We can use them in our model to calculate the production of the rainline. The issue here is getting to winning the pastoralist himself to appreciate the system in the kind of information you give them. So we have to make our data, our output very accurate as it should be, so that when we tell them that it's going to it's going to be a drought in this place, there's going to be less rain in this place, it's the accurate information they get. I wanted to confirm that SMS is coming. Let me just send some test. Okay, is there any other question?
Any other questions?
Hi, Chris from Climate Tracker. I think this is genius. I love it. It's great. The question I have is for the I kind of guess linked to the farmer's appreciation of the product. On the it worked. Okay, great.
The message has come out. Okay. Yes, I was just in the test. So it shall come.
Great work. I was just wondering on the geographical scale that you're operating on for the region. I'm not really that aware of the size of the region you're working at. What is the type of variation that they can expect across that geographical scale? Because I'm guessing that, if you're able to show them a lot of variation in the same area and therefore warn them from a drought at one area, but then they can move to another area where there's not a drought, for example, then it's very valuable for them. But if it's on a scale in which there's not actually that much difference in the rainfall distribution in that area, then it might be a bit more difficult to show the value. So I'm just wondering, in this scale that you're working on, is there significant differences at the same time?
Okay, from the maps, you can able to calculate the vegetation index from a map, within a location or a pixel of a map. So a pixel that we use maybe is 5 kilometers. So you calculate the vegetation index there, and you're able to calculate the amount of biomass in an area because of the index. And you're looking at the consumption, you look at the number of livestock in that place, and the consumption. So you calculate it per day, they consume this kg of biomass, and you look now in 2 weeks how much they consume within that area, and what is there. And so based on that, you make a decision. Maybe to advise them, you better move to this place.
So is this covering the whole of Nairobi and Kenya?
Not the whole of Kenya, because first of all, our interest is with pastoralists, not the whole of Kenya are pastoralists, just a small region that we have in the map. Maybe in Tanzania also, they're just a small region of pastoralists, because not everyone is a pastoralist. So
we have a bigger pastoralist in Eritrea. Sadly, Eritrea is not included in this unique program. And I think I have to complain to him. But anyway, it's talking about insurance for pastoralists.
Yes.
They are continuously on the move. So much so that at some stage the government was even thinking of formulating a strategy of keeping these pastoralists in one place so they could educate their children and all, because you see they're always, of this. And also because traditionally they know of the changes of the weather, pastoralists. They are much more, how do you say, I can't say educated, but they are knowledgeable of all the changes of, so to what extent is your program going to be applicable? I mean, it's fantastic. It's an incredible effort, but it has to be feasible and applicable to these things. And like insuring camels, for example, because most of our nomads don't even have livestock. They are camel, stock they have. So let me know how. In theory, I mean, like it's great, but in practice.
Yes. Insuring of the livestock or maybe the camels, and she also asking that these people, they know information about the weather or the climate. The kind of information that I know that maybe they know is based on historical. So if you live in an area like in Kenya, we live in an area in Kenya, we know that it's going to be rainy season is from March to June. Yeah, that's the kind of information that people know. But now with the climate change, a lot of things change, a lot of things, you read things up and you're really not aware disasters come. You see, you're really not prepared for it. So the same is just for creating that preparedness to prepare these people for disaster, that in case it comes, how do you cope up with it? Yes, we've seen cases where maybe you are informed, you know that it's going to be drought, but you don't take any action. So what the system is to influence you to make a decision. Yeah.
I think we should probably move on from questions, but on that note, I just want to say that all of these applications were built in less than 24 hours and were meant to simply show proof of concept of what's available once this data is made accessible to people who can act upon it. And I think that's the important thing to note. But thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert, and thanks to all of you. I think the next presentation is a practical example from Malawi as to how the whole system is working end to end up to the time the user gets the information, or maybe makes also a feedback. So Fred from Malawi, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. So as you have seen, I think previously from Bonnie presentation, Malawi is one of the countries that is also participating in this program. So I'll just give you an overview in terms of what's happening in Malawi on the ground in the whole program. So if we go to the next slide, please. In terms of the objective specific for Malawi, as you know, there are 11 countries and each country has its own specific issues within the program. So for us in Malawi, we had the four objectives. The first one was to look at the having a functional network of meteorological and hydrological information, as well as stations, as well as the infrastructure, and also to ensure that we're able to develop and disseminate the tailored weather forecast, where now the hackers are coming in terms of transmitting that information to those that need them. And we're targeting 7 districts which are very prone to the climate-related disasters. And then we're also looking a step further in terms of initiating the integration of weather and climate information into district-specific plans and also at a sector level. And then also we had a challenge in terms of the cooperation with our neighboring countries, particularly Mozambique, because our weather systems in Malawi generally move from east to west. So having proper arrangements with Mozambique could also help us in terms of alerting, the people that are at risk on these, particularly on the tropical cyclone and the floods. So next slide. On the implementation arrangement, for Malawi, this program was set up within the disaster management framework. So it's being implemented by the Department of Disaster Management Affairs. but it has got 2 implementing partners, the Department of Climate Change and Meteorological Services, as well as Water Resources Department. So we are expecting to end by 2017, and essentially the project responds to the national priorities as set out by government. Next. So in terms of the achievement so far, I think we have achieved a lot, and these are just some of them that I just wanted to share with you. In terms of rehabilitation of the infrastructure, procuring of automatic weather stations, because some of the places that are very key, we couldn't even install a manned station, so we have 10 automatic weather stations that have been installed. Right now they are all operational, providing data. And we have also provided the state-of-art, numerical weather prediction computing infrastructure in Malawi for the first time ever. And we are running what is called the Cosmo model. So this is a very good model on the short-term and medium forecast. It's of 7-kilometer resolution. So which is very good, because initially the department used to have a wide area forecast, which was not very useful to the people that need it most. So at 7 kilometers, we are now testing the model in terms of how it works, but we hope, so far I think everything is working on as we planned. We also managed to connect all the stations, 21 of them, to have the internet, so that we have smooth transmission of data, which is very key in terms of timely. Otherwise, initially we used to have people calling the phones. So you can actually see how costly it was for every station to be calling to the collecting center. So now they are connected, so it's just at the click of the button. And also we are trying to decentralize, in terms of the data management. What we want is every particular station, because they live in those specific locality, they should be able to be responding to the need, of that area. So we want data management to be decentralized. So that was part of that. So we are using the glimpse of database management, which is recommended for many least developed countries by WMO to manage our data and archive, and also to produce some products. Next one. So various trainings have been undertaken to enhance the capacity of the department. And also what last year we just managed to revamp and train the civil protection committees. These are the committees that are in the village, that are able to work with the people who are at risk. So initially they didn't have an idea on what is it that we mean by a forecast or any other climate information. So we dealt with them to train them. We are still doing it, even targeting the traditional chiefs, because culturally, if a chief says, could you please, we are at risk, and we move, people will listen to a chief. So those are one of the target people that we have also trained. We have initiated the development of, a review of the district development plans, as part of the program. And also we are now undertaking the review of the coordination protocols in Malawi, because there are some weaknesses in that regard. And this year we will do a user needs assessment, so that we know that what is it that people would want, and this will help us in the future planning of our activities. We're also planning to procure, the network of lightning detection facility. So this will enable us to track severe weather convective system that we experience in Malawi. So this is at the initial stage. We are still discussing with the UNDP. Now, as you might have heard, that Malawi was one of the countries that managed to get the GCF funds. So we are scaling this program in terms of coverage, because initially we had 7 districts. So now we want to cover the whole country. So that is in space. And also in terms of, if you go to the next slide, in terms of the users of the information, now we are targeting, to strengthen agriculture, weather and climate advisories. So we are targeting farmers. So where the hackers now will be very prominent, that in terms of the use of the information that these genius guys are developing, because we are targeting the farmers so that they're able to enhance their decisions at farm level. So the GCF project essentially is looking at expanding, as I said, that we are upscaling both in space and also application. And it's going to be led by the disaster management affairs, because we are upscaling the existing one. But now we have increased the number of implementing partners. We have now Department of Climate Change and Met Services, Water Resources. We have the Fisheries Department, because the lake, the lake users, they are very key. We have been losing people on the lake because of lack of the early warning messages. and the extension services. So we are targeting the extension services because this department has got extension workers all across the country. So if we maximize their use, I mean, if we maximize their services, we are able to reach to the farmers. So, and we also have an NGO, National Smallholder Farmers Association. So this is a consortium of smallholder farmers. They group together and we want to work with them because they have a direct link with the farmers themselves. So if you go to the next slide. So essentially that gives you an overview in terms of the picture of what we intend to do. So the expansion of the infrastructure, development of the climate products and platforms. So the platforms are very key because now we need to be very innovative to move with time. And well, that's where this, the example that we have seen here will be very useful. And then we also strengthen community capabilities. So we need to work with the communities or the ones that, for example, the Civil Protection Committee and Civil Development Committees in the villages on terms of early warning and climate information. So we hope at the end of the day, we'll be able to save some life that is at risk as a result of climate change. So that's a snapshot of what we are doing in Malawi in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. That was fast, but contains, end-to-end all the information. Are there any comments or questions for Fred?
Yes, so I wanted to say a couple of things. We are close to the end, but if you have a few questions, if you want to raise again the issue about financial sustainability, we actually were supposed to have an entire session of Q&A on private sector and financial sustainability with Alan. So maybe if you want in the next 5 minutes or so, besides the question on what has been said in the panel, raise that. Maybe Alan can say a couple of words and then we can eat and drink something.
I didn't know that we were so close to time. I still thought that we have 1 hour to go. Really? Yeah, I thought we had 1 hour to go. But Alan, please, because the sustainability aspect.
There's a question. So
yeah. Julia, okay.
This time. Thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to compliment in general. I think this is really inspirational. It's very interesting. It's very encouraging to see that things are actually possible to link with private sector, with creative young people. It's making a change. I mean, this is the whole story of Eastern Germany. Also doing a lot of small things that then can actually produce change, the transformational change we're talking about. So thank you very much for sharing that. One curiosity I have in all of that, I mean, I already asked the question of the financial sustainability, but also in terms of access, both, so because data is always sensitive, no? So it's hard to get data out of public institutions to use it for private purpose, which then have maybe a fee, whatever finance you can build up. You mentioned that it comes from the insurance, which makes totally sense. So I'm a little curious if you can elaborate a little bit on that. What's kind of the really the big challenges, the barriers you need to overcome to make it happen or to scale it up? Because and how did you actually manage to involve the public sector? So in Malawi's presentation, it's interesting to see you target all these government institutions. They have some data, and also what's their willingness or what's their incentives to buy it into schemes that then have like a lot of potential for the beneficiaries. There's they sound like easy on the scheme, but there's not at all self-understanding, as we all know. So I would be interested to know some more detail.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to congratulate you with this initiative. And in my place, I come from some very small island, around 170,000 people. If you send a message that is not correct once, twice, third times, it's finished. So my question is, in your case, how about the accuracy of the information that you are sending and how people is reacting to the message, how they are receiving that message. Okay, it's the question.
Okay, thank you for that question. Actually, it's one of the questions I tried asking. Somebody tried asking. Somebody asked it, and I tried giving an answer. One thing about the system that we developed. Okay, we understand first of all the kind of information you give people. If you give 3 messages which are wrong the first time, they won't believe the 4th one. Yeah, that is true. So the system that we're doing, we're developing is based on calculations, based on information that we've gone around, we've seen, and it's based on data that is received scientifically. Yeah, I talk of the input data that we get in from the satellites. Those are satellites to just show you that this is the condition of the ground at this point. And the weather prediction data, yes, that we receive, they're accurate. Those are the ones which are there with the Met department. So those are what we use in the model to calculate the salinity of our inland. So I really, unless we don't believe where the data come from, unless we don't believe the Met, because that's where we get our data. But I believe the system itself is going to be accurate, and the information we're going to give is going to be satisfactory. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much for the question. I think for Malawi, as we all know that the data issues, I agree with you, they are very sensitive, and people try to limit the use of that data. But for us, as a government department, and we are working with other government departments, sharing information is not that a big problem. But the problem comes in when we need to involve the private sector in terms of what we need to do. So right now in Malawi, to improve the situation, we are trying to develop, a business model together with that private, company, so that everyone it becomes a win-win. Because we don't want just to give data and this private institution, make money out of it, and yet the government is getting nothing. So by sitting down, we have already started working with some of them on developing a business model that works for both of us. And then eventually we have the MOUs, and these MOUs are signed at the highest level so that they are bind and everyone does what is expected. So there's that clear kind of understanding in terms of what we need to do. So development of the business model together with our department or other government department, is the only way that everyone agreed that it would work to address the challenges that we have been facing.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a proposal. Why don't we stick around outside with food and we keep this discussion one-to-one? I mean, we can stay.
Before we go,
yes.
It would be good if Mr. Miller give us how your organization is trying to encourage, what role private sector could play, and whether you have already formulated some kind of, initiative.
Maybe I can compromise by being very brief.
We can give him the floor for 2 minutes, and then we keep talking. Since we have been giving you some refreshments, we can do that.
Should I take the mic? Is that fastest?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple of things that I'll say very briefly, and then I will stay. The first is, I think many of you saw, we were making available a market assessment, which is, to our knowledge, the first such study of its kind in Africa, where through the firm I'm contracted with, C4 Eco Solutions, we conducted interviews and looked at business opportunities using weather data. And I think what Fred just said is very much linked to this, because we can't impose a business model on a government agency. So Fred and Bubu and their colleagues have to accept and embrace the idea, as Fred just has, of a business development role for the government. And what we're finding is now a number of our partner countries, not all as not all on the same pace, are responding and expressing a lot of interest. So one thing I can say is this full report is now online, I think? Yes. Yeah. And so if you didn't pick up a copy just of the link, it's at the project website. The other point is just to say that I hope this session has conveyed how many facets there are to weather observation, early warning systems, and the provision of weather information to those who need it. And we chose in this session to focus on one aspect, which was the opportunity to use big data of the kind that the Columbia people are now helping to manage, to engage with African, what was Bubu's phrase? Smart software developers. Okay, hackers. And how many opportunities. And I hope you got Michael's caveat here. These guys did this in 24 hours. So we know and they know that before this could be implemented, much less commercialized, they would need to go through a very significant supporting process. But this is now, you can talk to Michael and his colleague Mark here further if you're interested in how this sort of thing works. Because we weren't inventing hackathons. We were building on the record, as some of you know, of hackathons which are being used for all kinds of products using big data. So the point was, if, and this is a big if, the weather data is available. So there's an underlying assumption here, which we could have talked about another 2 hours, which is where exactly are we in getting this weather available? You also heard from Fred, people are dying on Lake Malawi because they're going out and not knowing there's a thunderstorm. We're not talking about some super sophisticated, reliable 18-day forecast. We're talking about the most basic and elementary delivery of essential information, life-saving information. Maybe one more quick anecdote is this, in the past week, we got 5 working stations up in Uganda on cell phone towers. And while they were putting the 5th one in, they started receiving information from the first 4, and they found out that a lightning storm was coming to make sure that the workers didn't climb the cell phone tower on the 5th one, or we'd have had another death from a lightning storm. So it was literally perhaps the first life saved from this project. And it's, so there's so many facets of this, but I'll just say the last point is, and I very much appreciate the question from our colleague from Eritrea, there are issues at the most basic end, the fisherman in Lake Malawi, the pastoralist who is in rural Kenya and Tanzania, and Sao Tome. But then what we're also finding is that there are very high-end uses of weather data with significant economic benefits. That the sugar companies in Uganda, those are big companies selling to Kenya, selling sugar to Kenya, as you probably eat in the morning, Robert. So that's a big business. There are there's tourism, there's mining, and those are all weather uses that are either going unmet or increasingly they're bypassing government services and using private weather vendors that are primarily dependent on satellite systems. And it is not as good as could be obtained with good ground-based stations and much more granular data. So there's a real opportunity to do a lot of different things here. And it's a very multifaceted story. The team that that Bonnie has assembled has been trying to, we do have very senior meteorologists, we have people with business backgrounds, we have 4 colleagues in Africa, a couple of whom have worked for weather agencies. So, but this is the beginning of something. We've been at it for how long? 2.5 years. And it's very exciting that we've actually been able to get some things in place, working, communicating data, and like I said, saved at least 1 life already. So, with that, I'll stop and just accept. Bonnie, I think you've invited everyone for some refreshments outside. Thank you all very much for coming.
An applause to all the speakers, and also I would like to give a special applause to Malawi, who is one of the record-breaking countries who obtained a project approved by the Green Climate Fund. Yay, Malawi! And please let's have